Hi everyone, I just want to talk to you a little bit today about what I've done for gradual weed control. Now keep in mind that this isn't an ideal plan. If you just plan on being at your property for like a couple of months, this is definitely a gradual long-term situation. That being said, even if you did it and you were only there for a little bit, it would still definitely help whatever you're doing. So I'd still go for it. Just a quick disclaimer, the thumbnail for this is photoshopped because now that I don't have so many dandelions in my front yard, I have to show you what it would have looked like. I don't have pictures from that, so I have to kind of fake it. Who takes pictures of their super weedy front yard that they don't want people to see? I certainly didn't, but I can promise you that this is what it looked like, and I just don't want to be deceitful. So it's not a real picture, but it's what it looked like, I promise. Let me give you a little bit of backstory about how we ended up where we are. We moved into this property almost 2 decades ago. It's probably around 18 years at this point. And at the time, this piece of land was the vacant lot in this neighborhood for many, many, many years. So there was a lot of trash. It was neglected for quite some time. So our property is about 1 acre, which is pretty big for a lot of people garden-wise, but it's certainly not a farm. So somewhere in between as far as large or small gardening. But when first moving in, that's a lot of pressure. That's overwhelming. So this is kind of how I really targeted getting it under control. The great thing about this is it's super budget friendly and very environmentally friendly as well. So let's get into it. The first step would be just to pick a plant. Just choose whatever weed is bothering you the most. Try not to focus on every single weed, because if you have a property the size that we did, if you have as many beds that we were focusing on, then it's just gonna be impossible. It's gonna be overwhelming. If you're anything like me, you're just gonna shut down and you're not gonna do anything. So choose one weed. The second step is to pick 3 of those weeds, either a day or a walk. Whenever you go out for a garden walk and you're walking past, just pick 3 of those. Now, that's not particularly good if you're dealing with something poisonous or stinging or anything like that. So of course that one would have a little bit of a different role. Once you get rid of a plant, you're not allowing it to flower, which means that you're not spreading the seeds. Will a bird bring a seed from another person's yard? Yeah, sure, but not nearly as much. You're not creating your own weed propagation situation. The first year doing this, earnestly, I chose nettle. And I would say step 2A would be if you have chickens. If you don't have chickens, you can still do all of this, just not this one part. But if you do happen to have chickens, this has sped up my process so much because the chickens can duplicate your efforts. Basically, I would pick 3 plants every day or every garden walk, and I would stick them in the chicken coop. Make sure, do a quick search, make sure that whatever plant you're picking is safe for your chickens to eat before you do this. And I would put it in the chicken coop. Even if it's a plant that's not super tasty to them, it's something new in the coop, so it's entertaining for them. And they will go after it because it's fresh food. It's still better than the chicken feed. Doesn't matter how great the chicken feed is. They're gonna prefer the fresh food over it. So I would stick that in the chicken coop, and then basically I am training them that this is good, that they want this, that this is what they want to forage for. And so then they would, whenever I'd free range them, if and when you do, they're going to go after that plant as well. So not only will they double your efforts in picking the weeds, but they will pick up the weeds and then they'll leave fertilizer behind. I know that not everybody can free range their chickens, and I know that not everybody has chickens, but if you do, this will also help to speed up the process. And once I was doing that and I really got some weeds under control, I could start doing 2 weeds a year, whatever. The third step would be to replace the seed. So this year I'm going to focus on purple dead nettle and picking that, feeding that to the chickens. And then I'm going to replace that with sweet alyssum, which is super beneficial. Here's the thing you have to remember about weeds. They have a purpose. They're there for a reason. Either it's because the soil was bare, so it was easy to root, and it's most of the time still providing food or pollen for the pollinators. It's providing erosion control. It's providing, it's helping to keep the soil moist. So if you're picking weeds, even if you don't, weeds are scattered, you're not gonna like replace the seed everywhere you pick a weed. But basically, if you can think about one area of your garden that weeds tend to go to, then you can just seed that area, and then next year that area will be taken care of, or during the season you'll have less work. Me choosing Sweet Alyssum this year is not ideal for year to year because it is an annual here. It's not gonna come back next year, but I am providing a whole lot of great habitat and food for pollinators. It's a super beneficial plant. So even though it's just an annual and it's just gonna be here for a year, it's still gonna provide great benefits and some good ground coverage that's going to help other weeds from getting in. So just to recap, that is step 1, just pick out a plant. Step 2, just pick up 3, just weed 3 plants. If you have chickens, give them to the chickens so the chickens can train to eat them, and then replace the seed. And then that's all you're doing that particular year. The first year I did it with nettle, and do I still see some nettle? I think last year I picked maybe 3 or 4 nettle plants, and before they seeded, it was not a big deal. The second year I chose dandelions and I replaced them with grass seed. So I reseeded my yard that year, and I have to say grass seed doesn't have the same benefits of dandelions in that it's not as beneficial for pollinators. Most of what would go to seed is getting cut down anyway, but there's a good amount of clover in our yard, so we already have a lot of pollinators in the yard anyway. We do let the clover go to flower a little bit so that they have a little something, but there are plenty of flowers for pollinators here, so I'm not as concerned about it with the front or backyard. The third year I focused on chickweed. That was a really tough one, but really the chickens, once they figured out that that was something that they wanted, they really did help. Once again, this year I'm gonna focus on purple dead nettle. I'm gonna have a whole video on identifying that and whatnot anyway, so we'll get deeper into that into another video. I hope this helps you guys out. I hope it helps you feel a little bit less overwhelmed. It can feel like a big task. Just do one thing at a time. And that's true not just for gardening, but for life. Just focus on one thing at a time. You got this. You're gonna do an awesome job.